Lovely. G'day trendsetters, Greg here from Fishplate Films, and welcome back to part 2 of the strenuously nauseating installing a Tsunami decoder into a MTH SD70ACe part 2. Well, you know I hate it when I'm right, and remember in part 1 I mentioned that I was a bit concerned about this IC here and this amplifier chip, these two here, getting rather hot because the decoder was upside down to fit these capacitors in, which we went through in painstaking detail in the first episode. Well, the loco ran okay for about half an hour, and then it was getting quite warm. The board was getting quite warm. I could feel it coming through the top of the locomotive. They all get warm. All of these boards get rather hot. If you want to leave a locomotive sit there, even without the sound on, come back in about half an hour or so, you will feel the heat rising up out of the board under the hood of the locomotive. That's why I drill out all my exhaust. You may think I'm a bit crazy, but there's an amplifier running in there. Amplifiers get hot, even when there's no sound, and the chips get very hot because they're always looking for a signal. The decoder's always on. It's looking for a signal, for a command from your throttle. So they're always doing something. They get very, very hot. This chip being upside down, the heat can't dissipate. It's hanging upside down. All the heat's there. It can't get out. And after about an hour's running, just even light engine by itself, it started to become erratic. And then I left it for a couple of days. I thought maybe it was a running in problem. Went back again, speed matched it with some Katos, running very nicely. I'm going to say it doesn't run any better than a Kato. It has slight speed issues, not as bad as Intermountain, but I feel that's the back EMF with the motor. We get into back EMF another day. It's another whole story. Back EMF really does sort out good motors from bad, because it monitors the health of the motor, monitors the output residual current from the motor that the motor generates. It's all very complicated, trendsetters. But if you have a motor that's not wound very well, that has problems with it, back EMF will pick it up. And all my Intermountains are very bad. Genesis are notorious for it. I know a lot of people like the Genesis. They're probably better now, but back EMF sorts the men out from the boys. And that's why Katos run so well and Atlas run so well, because the motors just seem to be a better quality. And the back EMF picks up on that. So anyway, MTH is much better than Intermountain. It was running really, really nice, and then it just shat itself. It got very hot, the engine shut down, the sound was still working, but there was no output to the motor. I thought maybe the motor had blown. I let it cool down, but no, that's not the issue. It came back and was running as good as ever once it cooled down. So the decoder is going out on over temperature because the ICs are upside down. Now, most of you run, I know Matthias, you have no problem with yours over in Germany. You're running at probably 20 degrees or something like that. I run at about 30 to 35 degrees C, and no, I'm not air conditioning the train room trendsetters for one locomotive. All my other ones run fine. It's this one that is a problem. So let's have a look at what we have to do to get this decoder right way up so the ICs and the amplifier can breathe and run cool. They still run hot, trendsetters, but cooler. Right, so I had to take the decoder out of the locomotive for the third time. You can imagine how happy I was about that. And then once you're done, the weight actually comes out quite easily. So they're not that bad. Once you get them apart, they're really not that much difficult to pull apart than anything else. Flywheels are rather small in them, but a very torquey motor, I must say. They need far less back EMF to actually start off and slip the wheels and speed step on. You know, I have a sequence where I have only just enough back EMF to make the wheels slip on speed step 1, and then the back EMF rolls off to nothing once I get to speed step 40. That's another thing if you watch my videos. But very torquey motor, but small flywheels, but still very powerful. Okay, so we need to have this board up the right way. So here is our little capacitors that are a problem. Now, I don't know why Tsunami put these capacitors on this one and other ones they have hanging on leads. What are you doing, Soundtracks? I have no idea, but anyway. So we can have the board sitting the right way. Not only can we have it sitting the right way, we can also have it sitting the right direction, because before we had to have these sitting up the front, which would fit under the dynamic hood of the SD70ACe, because it wouldn't fit anywhere else. But now that we've machined this out here, bit of a rough job. I'd love a mill. I don't have a mill, so this was done just by the old filing and drilling. You know, it's all right. It's all right. Down about probably 1.5 mil there. Didn't take much. Also have to cut these little lips off because the two capacitors don't fit in between these two lips. So now it sits in there like that. As you can see, that board sits nice and flush along here, and they sit in there very nicely, and we should be good to go. So we'll put this back together now and we'll give it a test run and we'll see what happens. If it plays up again, well, we know we've got a motor issue, but hopefully it should be all right. Fingers crossed. Righto, trendsetters, our decoder's in, and you can see the notch out here. Where are we? Notch out here for the capacitors, and the board's now sitting nice and flush on top of the chassis there, and otherwise you just have to do a bit of tidying up on this. And I've given it a bit of a run, and it's definitely running a lot cooler. I've had the body sitting on it most of the way without clipping it back on because, you know, they are a bit of a pain to get off. And it's definitely running a lot cooler, so that's good. And funny story, trendsetters, you're going to laugh. Yeah, you will. Notice this? Yeah, that's the number board, circuit board. Well, I didn't follow the 6Ps. I didn't think I had the locomotive out of a consist, because you know when you have a loco in a consist and you take it off the layout, it still thinks it's in a consist. So I had it up here on the test bench on my little track, and I put the decoder and wired it all up, and I needed to find out what polarity the motor wires were, because not only have we flipped the decoder around the right way, we've also spun it around the other way, so it's sitting exactly the right way now, where before it was sitting backwards both ways. It was upside down and back to front. So I thought I'd just get the motor polarity right before I soldered the wires on. I'm mucking around anyway. I thought I better take it back up to the layout, trendsetters, and make sure I've got it out of a consist. So I did, against my better judgment, with wires still hanging off it everywhere, and I made sure no wires were touching the decoder, because one day I did fry a decoder doing that. Yes, I did. Had some wire touched track power, which shouldn't have, you know. But anyway, this little thing, funny enough, was sitting underneath the wheels, and when I put it on the track, I had a bit of a smoke machine, trendsetters, and the two little LEDs in there are fried. Luckily that's all it was. I thought it was the decoder, but luckily it wasn't. So there you go. Will I never learn? Huh? Will I ever learn? No. No, I won't. Unbelievable. See the numbers? 9, 9, 9. It may as well be 666. But anyway, I must just say though, this is not MTH's fault. None of this. Remember, we're trying to do something that this locomotive and this decoder were never designed to do. So can't blame MTH for all this drama. And probably if you, as I said in the part 1, if you had a wrap decoder and plugged it into the 8-pin socket on their board, which I'm trying to find, and I can't find, it's in this mess here somewhere, you would have no dramas. But I don't like the wrap decoders. I think they suffer from heat problems as well, especially down here. As you know, I run things are pretty hot down here. And I've had issues with the wrapped decoders before, and I won't use them again. So it's not MTH's fault. I will say it's their fault though for making their LEDs switched with a positive instead of a negative like every other decoder on the market. If you want people to buy your stuff, MTH, you've got to make it easier for people to retrofit stuff, because not everybody wants your decoder. I'm going to run this a little bit more and see what happens, and order a number board LED. At least it plugs in, I guess that's one thing. And I guess this needs to be updated again, trendsetters. So I'll run it for a few weeks, a couple of months, and we'll see how it goes. Remember, I don't care how pretty something is. It has to be detailed reasonably well, but I don't care. For me, they have to run well and run reliably. So you can always super detail something. You can't put a good drive system in something. So we'll see how this goes, and we shall get back to you in, I don't know, a month or two. Well, trendsetters, things aren't looking good for the MTH. Looks like we have a motor issue now. I noticed the decoder was a lot cooler once we had it sitting the right way up, but it was still getting warmer than anything else on the layout, the other locomotives running. And it started tripping my auto reversers. Now you know that auto reversers work on a trip current, and if you have them set too low, they can false trip with the current just that the trains are drawing. You shouldn't have them set too high either. If you watch my video on Digitrack's auto reversers, just a shameful plug there. Anyway, as soon as this entered the auto reverse section, the auto reverse was going crazy, which meant it was drawing too much current. And the auto reverser thought that there was a train across the insulated joint at each end of the auto reverse section, but it wasn't. It was this thing drawing too much current. So I thought it was the auto reverse for a little while, and then I felt the heat and I thought, oh God, please. So it's on the bench again. We've got it hooked up with a battery, and we've got the motor disconnected from the decoder, obviously, and just running it on a 9-volt battery, and I'm trying to put a bit of load under it, and every now and then the revs drop and die, drop and die, drop and die. So also the ohms on the motor as standing still, it's about between 6 and 3 ohms across the positive and negative. It should be about 100, I think, or 50. They're all a bit different, but definitely not 3 ohms. So that's nearly a dead short. So, oh, did you hear that? It just shat itself, trendsetters. And now it's speeding up again. That's what it was doing on the layout, up and down, up and down. So I may have to apologise to Matthias and say it might not have been the decoder getting too hot, but even so, I still prefer the decoder sitting the right way. This thing is, as the motor's warming up, the windings are warming up, and it's starting to play up now. Decoder totally disconnected, just on the old 9-volt battery trendsetters. They're great. They're great for doing test runs. So I ran for a good hour and a half on the layout pulling a train, and I was starting to get slightly excited. And then reality set in, and it just stopped. Now, did you know that Tsunami decoders actually have fault codes, and they'll flash the headlights and the dish lights when there's a fault to tell you how many, and you go read how many times the lights flash, and that tells you what the code is, what the error code is. Isn't that clever? I don't know if you can hear this, but this thing's jumping up and down all over the place. So anyway, this was flashing. I thought it was 10 flashes when it stopped, but the sound was still going. So if the sound keeps going and the locomotive stops, then it's a motor issue. If the lights flash, I think 9 times, it's a heat issue, which I thought it was, but it wasn't because the sound stayed on. So it's a motor issue. So I joined the ranks with people who have had problems with MTH motors. So I'm afraid it's going to have to be a bit of a thumbs down for MTH. Sorry. Whoop. There you go. It's just stopped to a crawl. Whoop. We're back up again. Can you hear that, trendsetters? Anyway, we'll disconnect that. I know motors fail. They're only made in China. They make 1 million of them a day. Why did I have to get the one that was crap? But it looks like a lot of other people have got them too. So MTH, all very nice. Having pretty outsides. I don't want pretty outsides. I want pretty insides. Now the trouble is, the motors are quite difficult to change. I'm going to have to pull everything off again. And which is why I prefer my Katos. 10 minutes you've got a motor change. What can I say? Anyway, that'll be the end of our MTH Tsunami install for now, trendsetters. This is getting put on the workbench to sit there, and hopefully I won't forget about it. So it's a shame. They're beautifully detailed, very nice, but I can't have unreliable locomotives on my roster. And it's not just this one. Other people have had motor issues as well. I watched a video today of someone who had 4 motors and they finally got one right. I'm getting older every day, trendsetters. I can't be stuffing around waiting for people to get things right with motors. We're all getting older and the eyesight's getting worse. I can't be bothered stuffing around. So anyway, we will give you an update when one comes along, but for now it's back to Katos and Atlas. Oh, and Walters Proto with their new Aces and Gevos. They are going to be spectacular when they get all the details on, because they have the helical wound worms. We'll talk about that another day, trendsetters, but that's a big thing. That is a big thing. A lot of people don't realise. I hate worm drives. Helical worms are a step in the right direction. So good on you, Walters Proto. I think they're just feeling the water with these Aces and these Gevos. So anyway, all right, I'm out of here. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.